How y'all doing today? It's funny, I was starting to get verklempt. And I think because of the topic today, we're talking about sex. I mean, nobody's going to say anything? Gee. It's let's do that worship set again, get them ready or something. We've been in a series on the Song of Solomon, and Josh has done a great job kind of preparing us for this day, talking about how singles should go about relating to one another as they're beginning a relationship and then continuing to grow in that relationship, that it's supposed to grow from a friendship to a place. And I thought the language, if you were here last week, the language was so that they would take up residence in each other's souls. That they, the Song of Solomon says, my beloved is mine and I am my beloved's. The idea of, it's not ownership or possession, but it's unity. It's about two people coming together as one. And that doesn't just immediately happen. It's kind of a process while people are beginning to date and grow in their relationship. But I was always thinking about today and the message. Today is like the wedding and the honeymoon. Yeah. My wife texted me, I think 4 or 5 times, stay classy, please. Stay classy. Yeah. Those are kind of different. But as I was thinking, as I walked up here, I just thought about people who, who are single and they don't want to be single. Also people who are single again. And so I don't want to step on your toes or hurt you in any way. And so just know that I've prayed for you, and I pray that God will protect you and give you a picture of what still could be. Okay? Here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read through the text. It's a long text. We're going to walk through it verse by verse. How many of you have been in church for a long time and ever heard Song of Solomon chapter 4 taught verse by verse? Okay, you got a couple. It's good stuff. If hopefully you read it beforehand like I told you to. But here's what I want you to do. And this is, for those of you who are single, I kind of want you to plug your ears, especially if you're young and single. That's what I'm really talking about. But if you're married, what I want you to do is close your eyes. I'm going to read. This is poetry, and I know I will botch this poetry up, but I want you to just hear the language that Solomon and his bride are speaking to each other with. And there's another person, or it's basically others who are singing. It's kind of like Grease or High School Musical. It's kind of like a musical. Maybe you don't like that, but here, this is what I'm going to read. Close your eyes. Just quit talking. Close your eyes. What is that coming up from the wilderness? Like columns of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, with all the fragrant powders of a merchant. Behold, it is the couch of Solomon. Around it are 60 mighty men, some of the mighty men of Israel, all of them wearing swords and experts in war, each with his sword at his thigh against terrors by night. King Solomon made himself a carriage from the wood of Lebanon. He made its posts of silver, its back of gold, its seat of purple. Its interior was inlaid with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. Go out, O daughters of Jerusalem, and look upon King Solomon, with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of the gladness of his heart. And then he speaks, behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth, I know this, really? You're going to go there? Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have come up from their washing, all of which bear twins. Not one of them has lost its young. Your lips are like scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built in rows of stone, and on it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your 2 breasts are like 2 fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies until the day breeze and the shadows flee. I will go away to the mountains of myrrh and the hill of frankincense. You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Depart from the peak of Amana, the peak of Shinir and the Hermon, from the dens of lions, from the mountains of leopards. For you have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride. You have captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. How beautiful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much better is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your oils than any spice. Your lips drip nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. A garden locked is my sister, my bride. A spring locked, a fountain sealed. Your shoots are an orchard of pomegranates with all choicest fruits, henna with nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes, with all choice spices. A garden fountain, a well of living water, and flowing streams from Lebanon. Awake, O north wind, and come, O south wind. Blow upon my garden, let the spices flow. And then she says, let my beloved come into his garden and eat its choicest fruits. And then he says, I came to my garden, my sister, my bride. I gathered my myrrh with my spice. I ate my honeycomb with my honey. I drank my wine with my milk. And then I believe, and the Jewish people believe, it's God who ends this incredible thing. And he says, eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love. Isn't the Bible awesome? I mean, I'm like getting emotional about this because it's like, does God care about us and the intricacies of our lives, and especially the intricacies of our married life, so much that he would say, hey, you want to know how to make love to your spouse? I'll give you a whole chapter and a half about it. Because that's an important thing, right? I mean, if in the beginning of the Bible it's all about a wedding, and there's a guy and he doesn't have anybody to hang out with, and so God creates a woman and they come together and it says that they are naked and unashamed, and the two become one. Throughout all of the Old Testament, the imagery about God and the people of Israel is about God being a bride or a groom, and the people of God being a bride. In the end of the Bible, it's about Jesus as our bridegroom, and we as the church, the bride of Christ. So it's all over that. Don't you think he would say, oh, and by the way, the real thing is important too. I've probably listened to 100 people teach on the Song of Solomon. One of my favorites is Tommy Nelson, who I probably listened to him 20 years ago, and in fact did this series at a church that wasn't really ready for it, and I got in such deep trouble. I said, so, if you need to talk to me afterwards, please see me. Don't see the deacons or the elders or anybody else. Just talk to me. We'll take care of it. But I heard one guy tell of a fable. He said there was a guy, an anthropologist, who went down to a group of people who lived near a river. They lived amongst the banks of the river, all up and down the river. And so he was eating with them one night. And they were having a nice time. He was having a large meal outside, under the stars. And then out of the corner of his eye, he saw like this 2,000-pound crocodile coming up out of the river, and he was getting closer and closer to the table, and he's going, oh my gosh, hey, there's a crocodile, and she goes, shh, we don't talk about crocodiles. And he goes, but it's coming up, oh my gosh, did you see? And it literally just nails this kid's leg, takes his leg off, and goes back into the water, and oh my gosh, did you see that? That poor kid, he's crying, his mom's over there crying with him, and shh, we don't talk about crocodiles. Okay? Shush about the crocodiles. And so he sees another one coming up, and this one, he takes up like an entire teenager. He just one bite, it drags him in a pool of blood back into the river, and he goes, oh my gosh, how can you people, and they all literally just, shh, we don't talk about crocodiles here. And so he's walking up and down the riverbed, and all these people are crying. He realizes there's all these people without limbs, without arm. I mean, the whole thing, especially teenagers, a lot of teenagers without parts of their body. And he says, I can't believe it. Why are we not talking about crocodiles? And, and older guys and women, the crocodile would just eat them and take them apart and ruin families and destroy people. And nobody would talk about crocodiles. Of course, we don't talk about crocodiles at home, Hey, Dad, can we talk a little bit about? No, go ask your mother about that one. I don't want to talk about crocodiles. Scary crocodiles. In school, it's kind of funny. You talk about crocodiles in a different way, kind of a very clinical, and name all the parts. And like this crocodile has these eustachian tubes and these fallopian tubes and all these, or fallopian tubes. Sorry, but I thought it was more biblical than that. I thought it was it's kind of in the Bible. And then you got this 15-year-old boy, and he's hanging out with a 14-year-old girl. And all of a sudden, this crocodile is crawling up upon them, and it's more powerful than they could ever imagine. The urge and the strength of the crocodile is so strong, and it devours them, but nobody ever told them anything about it. And so we're going to talk about crocodiles today. But it's good. It's good. Here, this is the beginning of the in chapter 3, verse 6. This is where the beginning starts. This is basically where they've dated, they've gotten to know each other very well, they've decided to get engaged, they have built a friendship, they have taken residence in each other's souls, and now this passion is igniting. And if you remember from last week, the end of Josh's message, he says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles and the does of the field, do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Be patient, be patient. He said that a number of times where they were together and they were feeling all of the urges of the crocodile coming up upon them. And then they would say, well, no, wait. Do not stir or awaken love until it pleases. And, well, now it pleases. It's time for their wedding. Verse 6, what is that coming up from the wilderness? Like columns of smoke perfumed with myrrh and frankincense with all the fragrant powders of a merchant. Now, it's really funny because I've looked at every Christian translation of this, and it always talks about what is that. It's always a neuter. It's not feminine. But it's interesting because it happens again in chapter 8, and it says, what is this coming up from the wilderness? And she is leaned over against her beloved. So it's really about a girl. It's actually not about a thing. It's about her. It's about the bride. And every Jewish translation actually has it. Who is she coming up out of the desert, out of the wilderness, like columns of smoke perfumed with myrrh and frankincense with all the fragrant powders? Now, do you remember Pigpen from Peanuts? He always had that just always where he walked, it was this thing. Okay, this is her, but it's different than the Pigpen thing. This is about a cloud or powder of a beautiful aroma, of the scent of, and it's not just a physical, it's poetry. It's not just literal, it's figurative. It's the idea that she is holy before God, and who she is and her character qualities, and the beauty of that is just lifting up out of the desert, out of a kind of a desolate place to God. So this woman has been holy and has been pure before the Lord, and she is now ready to become a wife, and she walks, and people can see by all that is just wafting up, oh, this is a woman of purity, of character, of holiness. This is a woman after God's heart. Okay, so that's the woman, and it's basically like she's coming down the center aisle, right? But now, where's the dude, right? Where's the dude? Usually the dude is out here, he's up front, and she comes. This isn't how Solomon makes his entrance. He makes it in a very different way. Behold, and the word will say, it is the litter of Solomon. Litter. It's like, litter? That's the word you chose? What this is, literally, is a bed with a canopy over it, and it's got these bars underneath it, and the dudes are carrying it. They are carrying the bed that they're going to eventually get into with this canopy over it. Now, I read the passage about the canopy. What is the canopy? What is that about? A canopy bed. If you heard the passage I read right after the worship, it's from Isaiah chapter 4, I think verse 5. It says, God's glory will dwell upon his people, and over it will be a canopy. Do you know what the word is? If you've seen Meet the Parents, it's a chopa. I wanted to show the scene, but I thought, oh no, it's going so far back. Meet the Parents. It's the funny scene where Greg, who's the main character, and then his bride-to-be is hanging out with her old boyfriend. And And so they walk into his shop, like his wood shop. He's got this immaculate house. We walk into his shop, and he takes down this big cover, and there's a hand carved from one piece of wood. That's what he says. And it's like 4 pillars with this beautiful top on it. And every pillar is etched and engraved with little rose buds, and it's wrapped around the thing, and it's all hand carved. Really, it took me 70 hours. And so they ask, well, what is it? And he says, and he's looking right at his old girlfriend, well, it's an altar, and I pray that they'll come together under this, and then one day they'll set it in their garden, and they'll remember back about their, and he's always like glaring at his old girlfriend, and so Greg is like going, dude, you need to be done with this, all right? And then he says, well, it's an altar, or as you might call it, because he's Jewish, a chuppah. And it just like really slams him, but this is what it is. It's this idea of God's glory is resting over or over this bed, and this is the place where they're going to consummate their marriage soon. And that's what they're carrying. It's carrying up from the desert. Behold, it is I'll call it the bed of Solomon. Around it are 60 mighty men, some of the mighty men of Israel. Remember David's mighty warriors? All of them wearing swords and experts in war, each with a sword at his thigh against terrors by night. I was going to show a thing. Have you ever seen the beginning of, there's all these movie references. The beginning of A Few Good Men, where the Marine silent drill team is doing their thing. I don't know if you've ever seen that in person. The silent drill team with the weapons. And they're and like 60 people in unison. Perfect. It is pageantry beyond measure. And that's what he's coming up. They got him on the bed, and there's people around there. And it is like, oh, this is awesome. It's kind of, coming up the front of the church, stopping, and everybody's just like, whoa, look at this guy. That's Solomon. Look at all the 60 men with their swords. This woman is protected. She is safe because Solomon is going to protect her, and he's got everybody around. They are going to protect this place for them to come before the Lord and get married. King Solomon made himself a carriage from the wood of Lebanon. He made its posts of silver, its back of gold, its seat of purple. Its interior was inlaid with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. I'm going to stop there. And I think this is important. So Solomon has 60 dudes with swords, and they are protecting him. They are his community of people. She has these, what they're called daughters of Jerusalem, and they have inlaid this bed with love. It's like embroidery. They have made this thing so beautiful. These two have a community around them who are protecting their purity because they want this day to be such a beautiful day for them. That they've prayed for them and encouraged them throughout their relationship, and now they are holding this day. As Josh has used this phrase, they're holding this space, this sacred space, their wedding day. They're holding it for them to experience the kind of love that God has for them. I don't know what you think about weddings and stuff, but when I read it in the scriptures, I realize that God really cares about this. It was funny. A number of years ago, I was a part of a surprise wedding. Literally, it was a surprise wedding. The guy had talked to the bride's sister long enough to know that he was not going to get crucified for this. And so they came to like a birthday party. I was in a suit. Everyone else is in shorts. And they're all looking at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, eventually you'll know, but I can't say anything. So she got there. They came in the door, and he kneeled down and asked her to marry him and asked her to marry him now. It's like, okay. And they had the wedding dress all set aside. It was really cool. And then I did the wedding, and I talked about how God sees marriage and how from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, the picture of God's love for his people is all about a groom and a bride. And I remember this Catholic friend of mine who I had been sharing the gospel with literally for 10 years. At the end of it, he says, hey, marriage is really about God, isn't it? And I went, yeah, yes, it is. And he's like, oh, I think I get it now. It's like from the beginning, to the end, God loves his people like a husband loves his wife. I went, yeah, you wanna meet Jesus? I think I do. But that's the picture. And this group of people have held this couple in such a way that they're going to experience the ultimate of God's love for them together. And so they say, go out, O daughters of Zion, and look upon King Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of the gladness of his heart. Now, I had to think about this one for a while. I mean, that's a great line, right? The day of the gladness of his heart. But it says to all the women, hey, go out and look at Solomon, King Solomon, and think about his crown and remember who put it on his head. Does anybody know who his mother was? Bathsheba. Any story about Bathsheba that you might want to share? And this is what I think it means to women who are to go out and look upon the crown that Bathsheba has placed on Solomon's head. You know, Bathsheba didn't have a good start in life. She was married to somebody else. King David, looked upon her on, like the roof and said, I like her, I want her. So she came over and they were together, and then David had her husband killed so she could be his wife, and then they had a baby, and the baby died. It was kind of God's punishment upon him, upon them. And then they had another son, and it was Solomon, which I think kind of gives us a picture of God's redemptive power to take a life that had messed up and gone away from God's plan, and somehow then God brings it back and lays it in front of people and says, go look upon that. God can redeem anything. Solomon now had Bathsheba placed, and now he's coming up and he's pure and he's holy, and this place has been held for them to come. Go look upon that and understand the incredible power of the redemptive love of God to the women. Now, this, I believe, begins after, chapter 4 begins after the wedding itself. And he is speaking, and use your imagination a little bit. Please. You use your imagination. I don't want to have to say a lot of, no. But listen to the way he talks to his new wife. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Now, if you notice the direction of his discussion of her features, it starts up top, and it's going to go down. Just saying. Just giving you that little preview. If you need to close your kids' ears at some certain point, you'll know the geography lesson here. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. She still has her veil on. We put it back. The dad puts it back, and they, start the whole thing. But she still has the veil on. But he sees behind and sees into her eyes, and there's a gentleness. They're doves. Doves in biblical language is always about peace. I find peace in your eyes. When I look upon you, I know my heart is at peace. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. What? Okay, this is what I understand this to be. Usually Jewish women, I don't know if you know this, but they have very curly hair in that area. And so usually a Jewish woman will have her hair up. Her hair was usually very long, but they would put it up before they were married. Here she has now let her hair down, this curly hair, and it's kind of glanced over her shoulders. And so it's like, and this guy's a shepherd, right? He knows, David, his dad was a shepherd. He knows what sheep look like as they're kind of bounding down the hills. And he says, oh my gosh, your hair is just kind of rolling off. Oh, it's very provocative because she has let her hair down. And that's not a new statement. This is a biblical statement of letting your hair down. Now it gets a little weird. Your teeth are like flock of shorn ewes that come up from the washing, all of which bear twins, and not one among them has lost its young. You know what this means? She has clean teeth, then they're all there, and they're nice and straight. She is not from, see, before I say this, is anyone from West Virginia? No West Virginia bride she is, She's not been drinking Mountain Dew her whole life. Her teeth are all in place. It's good. Let's move past that quick. Your lips are like a scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. He has gone 3 verses, and he's not even left her face. He is just saying how wonderfully beautiful she is. And he is building her up. I mean, can you imagine just listening to that for a while? Ladies, I know men, you're probably not good at that. Just read it. Read it to her. But ladies, if you're hearing that from somebody, I mean, doesn't that it just lifts you up? It builds you up. And that's what the next little verse says. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. The idea of the countenance of this woman as he has spoken to her over and over, she's just risen up. And she has a nobility to her now. I don't know if you remember what she said about herself back in chapter 1. Please don't stare at me. Don't look at me because the sun has kind of burned my skin. I worked hard in the fields and now I don't really feel all that good about myself. But he has spoken words of kindness to such a degree that now she's upright. She's feeling good. And then he says, your 2 breasts are like fawns, twins of gazelle that gaze among the lilies. I don't know if you've ever been here during the week. Right out here, there's like a row of trees. And we do have deer. We have 2 does that come, and they kind of gather here. I think the mom is around, and I saw the dad guy, once with his rack of horns. But the amazing thing about fawns or little baby deer is that they're a little skittish. They'll run off really fast if you scare them. So you have to kind of move gently. You move just real quietly, and then they'll look at you and they won't run away. This is about gentleness. This is about being very kind. I'll never forget having a conversation with a guy. He was a couple years younger than me, and he was married. He'd been married for about 10 years. And I mean, I can tell you where the road that we were on, we were near Chicago. We had gone past our exit, so we had turned around and we were driving back. And he said to me, he says, me and my wife, we don't have sex anymore. And I went, oh, okay. Well, you've been married 10 years? Like how long? About 10 years. What? you haven't had sex with your wife in 10 years? No, we kind of cuddle, but we don't have sex. And, it's like, I can't even, what? He said on his wedding night, they had remained pure, but on his wedding night, he was so forceful and basically played out every fantasy that he had ever had about a woman with his wife, and it scarred her, hurt her, because he was so forceful. And yet Solomon says, I'm going to be very gentle with you. Guys, I don't know about if you know this, guys and girls are different. I don't know what the statement is. Girls use sex to get romance. Guys use romance to get sex. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That, of course, that's a new one. But men are like microwaves, women are like crock pots. That's a good phrase. Like how long does it take a guy to be ready for sex? There, right there. There, again. He's ready again. There you go. Okay. It's so funny, I will tell this one story. This is kind of funny because every once in a while, now that the girls are out of the house, it's been 25 days and 20 hours. The girls have been out of the house, and we've been married 27 years, and we've had 25, almost 26 really good days. So like every once in a while, like we can just do anything, right? And so Dana will come down like halfway if I'm down watching football or something, and hey honey, do you want to have? And then she'll keep on yelling down to the basement, honey, do you want to have sex? You want to? And what she doesn't realize is that I have sprinted past her in a blur, and she didn't see me, and I'm in bed. And so she comes back into the bed and says, oh, how'd you get up here so fast? You didn't see me go past you? It's like, whew, I'm gone. Anyway. Oh, sorry, we were on verse 8. Verse 9, until the day breeze and the shadows flee, I will go away with the mountain of myrrh and the hills of frankincense. For most translations, or some translations actually call them the mountains of Bether. I've been in Israel 3 times. I have looked on maps. I have hunted for the mountains of Bether. There are no mountains of Bether. The word actually means separation. You guys know what cleavage is? It has nothing to do with a mountain in Israel. It has to do with her body. And he says, I have desired you so long. And now all night long, I just cannot wait to be with you until the day breeze and the shadows flee. That's morning. So he desires her. Verse 7, you are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you. Isn't that a great thing to say to your wife? Especially when she doesn't feel that great about herself, as we saw in chapter 1. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Depart from the peak of Amana, from the peak of Senir and Hermon, from the dens of lions, from the mountains of leopards. And what does that mean? What does that mean? He says, come away from all the things that are dangerous. Mount Hermon is one of the mountains up in kind of the northern part of Israel. It's very enormous. It's like usually has a mist of clouds upon it and snow on the top. It's very menacing. Obviously, this place of mountains where there are leopards and lions and all this stuff that is scary. And he says, I want you to come away from all of that and just be together, be alone with me. I mean, I'll say it real quick. Sex is the best vacation you can have from life. It is a wonderful place to just get away from all the difficult things in life and just be alone with the person you love. And it's a vacation. It's the cheapest vacation you'll ever take. I know you don't want to laugh. Don't laugh. And then he says, you have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride. You have captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. I mean, oh, come on. That is dripping with beauty. I mean, guys, if you would just be romantic enough to say this, life would be so much better for you. Your lips drip nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. Now, wait. Well, let's go back to that verse. Honey and milk are under your tongue. Well, how does he know that? Your lips drip nectar. Honey and milk are under your tongue. I don't understand. Can anybody explain that to me? What kind of kiss is this? Well, it's not a French kiss, because France came into play like at AD 800, and this is at least 1,000 years before Christ. So a biblical kiss is like 1,800 years before a French kiss. A French kiss is not a French kiss. It's a biblical kiss. I mean, I don't know. This is like where it's like it's a little, it actually gets worse. But here's the point. It's like have you, making out is so glorious. Is it not? And I'm sure that you think it was all for high school or your wedding night, but like I said, the girls have been out of the house for 25 days and 20 hours, and making out is a lot of fun. So we haven't even gotten to the sex part yet. He has spoken so kindly and gently to her and told her how lovely she is. Then they start to make out. And then he says, a garden locked is my sister, my bride, a spring locked, a fountain sealed. What is that talking about? His wife is pure. Garden locked. She's been pure her whole life, and she has kept herself for him. And then the next couple verses are, it's late. I should just let you read it, and I'm going to read it and kind of give you my little synopsis of it. Your shoots are an orchard of pomegranates with all choicest fruits, henna with nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes, with all choice spices, a garden fountain, a well of living water, and flowing streams from Lebanon. Okay, he's now the geography, we've gone south now, okay? We're talking about something pretty intense, pretty intimate. And remember what they said when they would get kind of into that place where they were really aroused before, right? Do not awaken or arouse love until it so pleases. This is a great line. Awake, O north wind, and come, O south wind, blow upon my garden, let its spices flow. That means there is no holding back now. We don't have to stop. We are married now. This is under the canopy, the glory of God. This is what God intends for marriage. So let's enjoy it. Come, O north wind. North wind was a strong wind. And come south wind. The south wind was a gentle wind. Come strong, come gentle, and blow. I know. It's pretty intense, huh? And then she says, let my beloved come into his garden and eat its choicest fruits. Okay. Okay, so you have your own imagination, right? And where are you going with that? I mean, hopefully you're going about where I'm going. This is good. So he finishes, he says, and I'm thinking this is after they've enjoyed each other. I came to my garden, my sister, my bride. I gathered my myrrh with my spice. I ate my honeycomb with my honey. I drank my wine with my milk. They are all together satisfied in each other. And the Jews are, I love how the Jewish people see this. This is one last line, and this is what I'm going to say. They believe this is actually God speaking out from his glory. There have been a number of places where the chorus, the daughters of Jerusalem, or the men from around Solomon have spoken into this moment, but the Jews actually believe that this is God finally speaking into this moment. He has been as a canopy, his glory has been surrounding this thing, and he says, eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love. You know why? Because he's the source of that love. And he has given us this gift as married people to enjoy so that we can experience the kind of love that he has for us in a very experiential way. I don't know if there's any place in the Bible that doesn't talk about us knowing God that doesn't use the same kind of word that it means for marital relationships. Our relationship with God is supposed to be an experiential thing where we really do feel and sense and are overwhelmed by his love. And he then gives married people the image that he has from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible. The image that he has about his love for his people is a marriage. And it's the marriage bed. And he says, eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love. Take in all of this love because this is a reminder, this is a reflection of my love for you. Would it be amazing that if it was in the church where that kind of love, that kind of intimacy, that kind of passion and intensity could be lifted up, where people would long to be pure and holy before God so that they could experience the wonderful pleasure of being together and experiencing that kind of love, the love that comes from God. Our God is the source of that love. And my prayer is that you will experience that as well.